That's my perfect. I'll tell you something. So I read it.
Bruchem Aboim B'Shem Hashem B'Shem Iyar Shir Torah. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's shir from Rabbi Yakov Smith, Shlita and Dine Muktza, B'Kelim Chashmaliyim, contemporary Muktza issues with electrical appliances. I'd like to give big yeshikar to Mishpachas Schindler for sponsoring today's shir. To the Nishmas Aviyam, Rav Shmuel, Ben Rabbi Lev Fisher Levish, Ben Ravocha. Yesterday was Yud Tas Iyar. To Nishmos Tzur B'Sar Chaim. To have the great schos of sponsoring a shir call Iyar Shir Torah 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Harav Smith.
I'd like to share with you a beautiful sugya in Hilchos Muktza, which is negeya in many different forms, and you'll notice almost all of them are new mitzias that we have to deal with. Ma'aseh shehaya, someone had an urn that was plugged in, and he wanted to use it over Shabbos, but he noticed that the plug is slightly out of the wall. Now, right now, the urn is working perfectly, no shayla of malacha, but he wants to push it in a little more so it won't fall out, because a few weeks ago it was out partially. Someone pulled the urn and the plug came out, and he had no water or no shalom bayis because there was no water over Shabbos. So right now he wants to pushing the plug a little bit. No malacha is taking place. The question is there a problem of muktza? Is a plug of an urn considered muktza? Simple shayla. Another question where the parent told the child, put away the vacuum cleaner quickly, it's almost Shabbos. The child forgot to put it back. Now the vacuum cleaner is in the child's room. The question is a mutter on Shabbos to move a vacuum cleaner? The third child will soon see a fascinating child that's unprecedented, is using a cell phone as an alarm. We'll tell you the story soon as we proceed. But Rabbi, I want to make something very clear. Today we're talking only about one shayla, and that is the shayla of Muktza. There's no question of havara, of electricity, as we'll see. Every shayla is going to be when there's no other malacha, just the question, is there a Muktza issue? So we need one yesod, which I think is simple, and hopefully we can apply it to many shaylas. Imagine Pesach al b'Shabbos, okay? And it was a very unusual Shabbos. Someone wanted to make it memorable. So he goes out before Shabbos and he bought a coconut for covered Shabbos. It's not gebrokt, it's not chodosh. Why not? It's a good idea. Let's make it interesting. It came Shabbos and he realized that the coconut doesn't fit into the nutcracker. How do you open a coconut? So he had one or two choices. Either he would go to the backyard, take a stone and crack the coconut, or he has a tool chest. He'll take a sledgehammer and he'll smash the coconut. So a person that doesn't learn halacha will say, well, I don't know, the sledgehammer sounds terrible. I mean, you build with them. A stone, it might be innocent. But the emes is not true, and that's the say we need. Because using a sledgehammer to crack open the coconut is kamara b'ferish Mishnah. Not the coconut and sledgehammer, but it's the Mishnah, Kuf Chav Beis Amid Beis. You're allowed to use a hammer, l'vtzaya goizim. But then again, we all know, to take a stone is also a gemara, and that's called Muktza Machmas Gufay. And you can't use it even to crack a coconut. What's the chilik? So the key words for today is the word keli. A stone is a very severe muktzah because a stone doesn't have a shem keli. A stone is not a keli. A stone is what's called muktzah machmas gufay. You didn't have in mind to use it. It's muktzah, it's segregated, it's separated from use. And even la'tzorech gufa v'koyma, you're not allowed to use a stone because it's missing the basic element of a kli heta. You don't plan on using a stone. That's why even for a coconut is us. But a sledgehammer or any kli shemalachto le'issa, the key word is kli. Since it's a shem keli, and although it's used typically for issa, but if you find a heta, kli shemalachto le'issa, you're allowed to use a tzarech gufay to crack a coconut, and we'll soon see Mekayimah, because let's say after you finish cracking this coconut, you put the sledgehammer down on the table, and now you can't use the table. It's blocking it. So that's the Heta Mekayimah. But the key word here is, once something is a keli, it gives us a lot of leeway. And that the heta of mekomo is a product of the heta of gufay. Since it's a regular kalim, you're allowed to use it for mekomo. In fact, so much so, the guy in Yeridea, in his beer, Reish Samachvav Gimel, he says, why is it taka that when you have a kli shemlachta in your hand, mashal sledgehammer, and now you finish using it, why don't you have to drop it right away? There's no longer tzarech gufay. So he says that the side is a kli shemlachta is not even muktza. Really, since it's a keli, it's not muktza. But Chazal wanted to limit it, so he said you're allowed to use it tzarech gufay mekayim, not michamol l'tzeil. But he's saying it's something like a kli heta with more restrictions. Okay, l'mais not all agree, but this we have to understand. And this I use the lashon of the Rav Shulchan Aruch in Shin Ches, in Shin Ches Siv Chav Beis. He calls kli shemlachta le'isa a muktza she'einei gomer. It's not a full-fledged muktza like gufay. The Aruch HaShulchan twice calls it a muktza kal, but the Yesod HaDavar is, since it has a shem keli, it's only mutter l'tzarech gufay mekayim, but that it is mutter. And you look in Shulchan Aruch Shin Ches Gimel, it gives these mishalim. A malachta le'isa allowed to move l'tzarech gufay to crack a nut. L'tzarech mekayim you need a place, but al mechama l'tzeil, if you're not using it, you're taking it out of the sun, or you're taking it out away from the outdoors that people will steal it, that's not tzarech gufay, and that is awesome. Now let's apply this to many shaylas, and we'll start with a few simple shaylas. Let's say a child soiled his clothing, had an accident, so to speak, and now the clothing have a dirty, they're going to have a bad smell. What do you do with dirty laundry? So there's a very practical eitzah. Take the clothing, the soiled clothing, put it into the washing machine, and close the door. At least that will contain the odor until after Shabbos. The question is, l'chayra, the washing machine is a real kli shemlachta le'isa. It's made to wash clothing, and that's a malacha gemura. The teretz is, of course, you're right, it is a kli shemlachta le'isa, but this is a perfect example of tzarech gufay. He needs the washing machine to contain the odor of the clothing. I'll say, what? A washing machine is a keli? A hammer is a keli? Well, the Mishnah says another mashal, you're allowed to use a sewing pin to take out a splinter. No, that's a keli. But a big washing machine? Teretz is, it's a machaba in Siv Beis. Kol kli al filu gadol v'kaved harbe. Mr. Mura says many people have to carry it to move it. La ma'isa keli is a keli. So there's no doubt about it, a washing machine is a keli. Shemalachta le'isr, you're allowed to move it l'tzarech gufay. No, but now the question is, fine, so you put it into the washing machine, now you want to close it. What's the heter to close the door? L'chayr, it's not tzarech gufay. So the answer is it is tzarech gufay. Because if the door is left open, you're not gaining. It has to be, it has to be airtight. So to close the door is included in tzarech gufay. Actually, I should mention that there is another heter we'll soon see of oida b'yada. Even if it's not tzarech gufay, if you're still holding the door with your hand, you're allowed to close it out to oida b'yada. So for that reason alone, it would be mutter to close the door. Now someone asked, that's oida b'yada? If you leave go of it and it falls, so then it's oida b'yada. But this door of the washing machine, if you let go of it, it's not going to fall down. Why is that oida b'yada? The teretz is the het of oida b'yada. I told you earlier. The Gaon says, the Gemara says it, is not because if you leave go of it, it's going to drop. If it's still oida b'yada, it's still the original shimush. It's still a tzarech gufay. So if you open the door, put the clothing in, oida b'yada, close it, you have two atayim. Number one, it's tzarech gufay, and number two, even if it's not tzarech gufay, l'mais is oida b'yada. Oida b'yada is mutter, like we saw, because it's a muktza kal. The third heter would be if the washing machine door, the washing machine drawer, is in a place that is obstructing usage of the room. Let's say it's a small room and the door's open, you can't get into the room, you can't use the room. It would also be a heter of tzarech mekayim. Fine. Now the next question, it happens often, you washed clothing before Shabbos, everything is fine, it's in the dryer, that's the problem. You left it in the dryer, you've got to take it out before Shabbos. Is it mutter to open the dryer door to take out clean clothing? So again, a dryer is a kli, even though it's big. It's a malachta le'isa, no doubt about it. But this is tzorech gufay. You have to get to the washer, to get to the clothing in the dryer. Here the question is, closing the door of a dryer in this context is no longer tzorech gufay. See, closing the door of the washing machine, you want to keep the smell in. But closing the dryer door, it's not tzorech gufay. So here we'll have to have one of the two heterim. Either if it's mekayimai, or if it's not mekayimai, you better be careful. Keep it oida b'yadai, open the door, take out the clothing, oida b'yadai, and then close it oida b'yadai. If you have none of the heterim, it's not tzarech mekayimai, it's not oida b'yadai, so there's always the heta of tiltal b'gufay, move it with your body, but why do that? If it doesn't bother you, leave it as it is. The tricky question is a dishwasher. Can you open the dishwasher to put in dirty dishes and keep it left to Shabbos? Or Friday evening, you want to use dishes that are left in the dishwasher. Opening a dishwasher is probably more of a heta. Even though mitzad echad, a dishwasher is a kli shemalachto le'isur, no doubt about it, it uses hot water, etc. But this is a tzorech gufay. I want to put in dirty dishes, I'm using it. I want to take out dishes, it's also a tzorech gufay. So definitely a dishwasher has the same heter. We'll soon see it's possible that a dishwasher, since a significant part of its function is to keep in dirty dishes on Shabbos, leave clean dishes the whole week until you need it next, it might even be considered a malachti laheta, because it has a dual function, to wash dishes and basically to keep dishes in it. I always think that washing dishes is not so important. You can wash dishes, it's easy to wash dishes, but it's the convenience that it has. It stores dirty dishes, it clean dishes, it's a kolbot. But no doubt about it, dishwasher is better than a wash machine and a dryer. Okay, so again, I'm talking if there might be always chashashes, and a light, anything that goes on, I'm talking about that there's no malacha whatsoever. It's only the question of Muktza, thank you for saying that. If there's a light goes on, you have a problem of a light. Opening an oven door, again, we're talking about where there's no light issue, and let's say the oven is on. An oven is a bona fide kli shemalachto le'isur. It's made to bake or cook. But then again, to get to the food, is it tzorech gufay? Closing the oven door when you took out the food still might be a tzorech gufay if there's still food in the oven. So an oven that's left open is not going to function properly. So closing the oven door when there's food in it is a tzorech gufay. Let's say you empty out all the food and now the oven is empty. It's no longer tzorech gufay. So back to the same two yisodos. If you make sure it's oida b'yadai, you're allowed to close it. If the oven door is in a small kitchen and there's no, you can't move, if the oven door is open, it would be a heta of tzorech mekayimai. And the worst scenario, when it's not mekayimai and it's not tzorech gufay, if there's tiltal begufay, moving the oven door, not with your hands, would be the heta of tiltal begufay. A very tricky question, because it's unprecedented in halacha, is a cell phone. Now, we're talking about that it's not a chasaron kiss, a regular cell phone, and there's no chashash malacha in moving it. The only question is the following. I had the shaila Erev Pesach. That was the story. Someone has a regular alarm that he set for the 2 days Yom Tov. But Erev Pesach, Shechal b'Shabbos, he had to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Shach is very early. He doesn't want to wake up Yom Tov Pesach 6 o'clock in the morning. So he needed a second alarm clock, but he didn't have one. So he decided he'll use his cell phone. He set it for 6 o'clock in the morning. Now here's the two questions. The question really is it mutter to use a cell phone as an alarm? L'chayra, a cell phone is a real kli shemalachto le'isur. So l'maisa, this might be a tzorech gufay. You have a way of using a phone b'oifen heta as an alarm clock. Now I must make a point. Mr. Brunsif Cotton Yud Beis says even though there's a heta of tzorech of kli shemalachto le'isur tzorech gufay, that's only if you have no eitzah. If you have another eitzah, then don't use the malachto le'isur. So stam every Shabbos to use a cell phone when you have a regular alarm clock there's no heta. But this case was a simple scenario. He didn't have another eitzah. So someone suggests maybe a cell phone, adrab, since it has the function of an alarm clock, and some people use it to tell time, it might be a kli shemalachto leheta, maybe a dual function. So the question is, a cell phone that has a main primary purpose for phone calls, which is Malachta L'Issa, it also has the accessory of being a alarm clock. Maybe it's Malachta L'Heta. What's the nafkamina? Very pashut. Let's say he left his cell phone on the table, and his children might play with it, but he doesn't need it. He doesn't need the makom or the gufay. Is it, if it's Kisha Malachta L'Heta, he can even move with the Mechama L'Tzeil. So here we come to an extremely important yisoid, which could be and maybe will be a share for itself at a different time, that basically every item has a second usage. It doesn't make it a Kisha Malachta L'Heta. I'll give you a very good example. A pot is Malachta L'Issa, right? As it states in the Rashba. But Lamaisa, we keep food in the pot. Leftovers in the pot. We cook food Thursday night, put it into the refrigerator until Shabbos. We use a pot as a storage container. But it doesn't make it a Kisha Malachta L'Heta. I'll give you another mashal. Today they have a calculator watch, which basically is a watch that has a calculator. So that is probably a Malachta L'Heta, because the main function is a watch. Now a watch is a Malachta L'Heta. Even if you're makbid not to wear it out of the Erev, but there's nothing wrong with the clock. The watch is a regular Malachta L'Heta. It has a calculator on it. The calculator is an accessory. The ik is made for the time. The calculator is a feature. Okay, I have a kasha on this. Why they call it calculator watch? The ik is a watch. You should go watch calculator. No, a kasha stop minister. But no doubt about it, you don't buy a watch for the calculator. So that I can understand is a Klisha Malachta L'Heta U'Le'issa, and that's Takamut Michama L'Tzeil. But our case of a cell phone, I don't think anybody in his right mind will say that the cell phone has two functions, for talk and alarm. And no doubt about it, it's a Klisha Malachta L'Issa, no different than a pot. It has a function, but that's what it's a function. But what's a cell phone made for? Malachta L'Issa. And Taka, I saw the Paiskim will say this, that based on a Bi'alacha in Simon and Siv Gimel, Bi'alacha says the following Hagdara: if it's made for Heta and Issa, even though the Ikka is used for the Issa, it's okay. But when something you found the use doesn't make it in the Malachta L'Heta. I think a perfect example would be a frying pan is Malachta L'Issa, even though you keep latkes in it after you finish cooking, frying it. But they have these fancy Pyrex dishes, and the way they advertise it, you bake in it, you could cook in it, or you could serve a salad, you could keep cold food in it. So that has a dual function. Dual function, Dr. Rashba, is not Muktza, even though the Roiv is for Issa, because they make a Pyrex casserole for Heta and Issa. Most of the use is Issa, fine, but it's a Malachta L'Heta, and even Michama L'Tzeil. Now this would apply, like I told you, to a calculator watch. I'll give you another mashal, an outdated mashal. We don't see it anymore. But people my age remember this. They had what's called a pocket knife. A pocket knife had a little scissor, and a filing, the nails, and a knife. The knife is the heta, but the others is issa. Now most of it might be issa, but all the pais can say that a pocket knife is malachta laheta, because a significant part of it is a knife. So that's why a cell phone is very hard to believe is anything but a klisha malachta l'issa. Fine, but what's the problem? I'm using the cell phone for the alarm. Why can that be a klisha malachta l'issa l'tzoyach gufa? And the answer probably is you're right. But I have one problem with him, and that's a very simple problem. Bein hashmashos comes. Look at the cell phone. It's totally functionless. Again, most phones don't have a time display unless you put it on. So right now the phone on Bein hashmashos is valueless. It's functionless. 6 o'clock in the morning, it's going to wake you up to go to shul Pesach al Shabbos. Why don't we say it's Muktza? Because Bein hashmashos, it was like an Evan Ba'alma. It had no purpose. And some place can say that. Because Bein hashmashos came, it was functionless. But the teretz has to be that since 6 o'clock in the morning, it will be functional. It's like Gamru b'dei Adam. It's like a Muktza that Bein hashmashos, a towel that was still wet. But Lamaisa, overnight, it dries naturally. So it's not Bein hashmashos Muktza because it will naturally become functional tomorrow. no, this cell phone, it works tomorrow morning. But the other question, which is again unprecedented in halacha, 6:01 and on, for the next 3 days, in this case, 3 days, but even 1 day, after it rang once, what is its function the rest of Shabbos or Yom Tov? No function. Not time, not alarm. You have no use of it. Why don't we say then it became Muktza? You'll say Muktza on Shabbos? Can't be. Bein Hashmashas it was a keli. What's wrong? But that's wrong. Because if you have a beautiful vase that broke, so Shivrei Kelim on Shabbos, if they're no longer functional, are Muktza. So why isn't a cell phone after it rang once and has no eventual usage on Shabbos? Maybe it's like a Shivrei Kelim. Antaka the Heintige Poison discussed this. So Lamaisa, the only thing is if someone does use it occasionally to hold down a raised paper as a raised hold this place in the Gemara, but it's rare. But it's a tzarech, and you have to know why. After Lamaisa, the phone rang, it should be a kli shemalachto le'isa, but there's no tzarech gufay. And we'll soon see if there's no tzarech gufay, there won't be tzarech mekayim. Because the heter mekayim is a byproduct of tzarech gufay. So this is a little bit tzarachian, but I should mention the Sefer Orchei Shabbos in Chelik Beis, it's page Chaf Hey, quote from Shmuel Oya Bas Chayin Levracha, that using a cell phone on Shabbos is a pirtze gedoyla, and it's disparaging kedusha Shabbos. It's like an umbrella or a bicycle, which maybe might be mutter, but it's a very anti-Shabbos. So better invest in buying an alarm clock, a normal one. But if someone is stuck in a hotel Erev Shabbos, he has no alarm clock to wake up next morning for Shachris, Avada, he could set the alarm in a phone. Just first of all, one thing, make sure it doesn't ring, starts playing a nice music, and everybody's wondering why he's playing music on Shabbos. And number two, don't hit the button to close, hit the snooze button, so you end up being Mechal Shabbos and you didn't even gain. So you have to put it far from the bed, whatever it is, but it has to be practically a workable situation. The next group of questions are very negeya, mitzad echad, and mitzad sheni are totally unprecedented halacha. And I'm going to give you a mashal. I know maybe it's not so negeya, but the yisoid is extremely negeya, and the mashal brings out the yisoid. Picture in front of you, make me have in my hand now, a fan. A regular, good old-fashioned electric fan. Plug it into the wall, on high, and it keeps you cool the whole Shabbos. Fine. How would you characterize a fan that's going on Shabbos? What type of Muktza, or better yet, is it Muktza b'chlal? So you're wondering, what kind of shayla is that? Of course it's Muktza. But why is it Muktza? Tell me why it's Muktza. What do you mean? It's Muktza. Why is it Muktza? What do you mean why? Because it's going. So, because I'm not going, it's going. I'm not doing malacha, the fan's going. What do you mean? But electricity keeps it going. I understand, but I'm not making electricity. Go to the electric company. What do you want from me? I'm not doing an issa with it. I'm keep myself cool. Okay, maybe keep yourself cool. They say cool is no good, don't be cool. But maybe that's the problem, because the electricity has to keep it going. But that's not melachta le'issa. A hammer, melachta le'issa. Why is a fan a melachta le'issa? So you'll say, I know why. What do you mean? It's pashut. Because before Shabbos, you had to put the fan on. So how does melachta le'issa? So I said, oy bazoi, the gefilte fish is also muktzah. You have to catch the fish, and kill the fish, and cook the fish. Teretz is, if you do malacha erev Shabbos, it makes no chiluk. The melachta le'issa means you do issa on Shabbos. What issa are you doing with a fan that's going? I'm talking about a fan, an electric light, electric lamp, electric clock, I should say. My mother speaks about an electric blanket. All these things are unprecedented halacha, because you do malacha erev Shabbos and it goes on Shabbos. But what's wrong with that? We paskin like Bis Hillel, Shvisas Kalim is mutter. You're allowed to do something erev Shabbos. You're allowed to set up the mill that goes on Shabbos. Now, lo yitzur, amad nazal, lo yitzur, they have a special fan that blows out Shabbos candles. Okay, it's amad nazal. But that would be a melachta le'issa. But a regular fan that you put on erev Shabbos, it goes all Shabbos, it keeps you comfortable. Why is that a melachta le'issa? So Lamaisa, this is what Rabbi discussed. I think he was the first one to discuss this. And in the tshuva, in Archaim Chelik Gimel Siman Mem Tes, he spoke about an electric fan, an electric clock, if you still have them, In Simon Nun, he speaks about a electric blanket, and Ramosha Taka wonders, what type of muktzah is it? It's not the regular malachta l'issa. In other words, let me be a little more geschmack. Let's say you have a fan that you did not put on before Shabbos. It's in the closet, it's not plugged in, it's working, but now it's not working. That is a malachta l'issa. Because to put it on Shabbos is an issa. So you can't use it. But when it's going from Erev Shabbos, why is it different than your cholent and your gefilte fish? That malacha was on Erev Shabbos, and Ba Shabbos, Ba Menucha. And Rav Moshe has this thought to say, maybe it's malachtoi leheta. And L'hoiras Nasan in Chelik Yud, Simon Lamed Vav, he says exactly like that. The Keli is Meinach Naichi, and no malach is being done. Why should it Bechlal be malachtoi leis? Rav Moshe in those two tshuvas is not very decisive, but in Chelik Simon Chav Gimel, he says mamish as clear as day. Kli chashmal, that even though it works with electricity, lamaisa, you're not doing malach with it. And he says it very bluntly. Davash malach issa pirushay davash oisim boy issa. I use a hammer to build. V'loy davash nasa aydei issa. Not I put it on Erev Shabbos, because gefilte fish also you have to do malacha. The teretz is when you do malacha with it on Shabbos, that's malach issa. So Moshe regarding again electric fan, electric clock, electric blanket, etc., feels it's not muktza at all. Now, and Chanami, to use it on Shabbos, you have to put it on. If it's off before Shabbos, then you have to put it on Shabbos. So Lamaisa, this is why Moshe holds definitely there is no problem. However, many poskim feel that there's a chiluk. And again, this is something you're not going to find the Rashba or Gemara. This is an unprecedented metzias. Because you're right, you put on the fan and it goes the whole Shabbos. But it doesn't go on its own. It goes because of electricity. Electricity has to be generated to keep it going. Maybe that's why it's malachta lis. A new svara. Now the emphasis is, according to that, I understand that gefilte fish and sholent, malacha was on Erev Shabbos, but that's it. But to keep the fan going, you need constant generating electricity. But the emphasis of Shlomo Zalman in Mincha Shloima, Chelik Aleph, Siman Tes, quotes this svara and rejects it because it's not mustava. Malach Lissa means I'm doing an issa. Vos gate michon that the electric company is doing an issa. Why does it make a malach issa if you need electricity being generated? I'm not doing it. So Shlomo Zalman says that lamaisa malach Lissa means you're doing an issa, which is not the case. But he does say a few words, a beautiful svar, and I saw the Shalmei Yonis in Chelik Aleph Amid Nun Beis elaborates much more, but it's something you can understand. And he says basically that, true, you put it on before Shabbos. But Lamaisa, the way this keli works is you put it on and off. That's malachta l'issa. Baraya, if you didn't put it on Erev Shabbos, we all agree it's malachta l'issa. Why is malachta l'issa? Because you want it to work, you have to put it on. So he says, a keli that's made to open and close on and off, it's malachta is l'issa. See, gefilte fish and sholent, once it's made, it's good. But this, its malacha is associated by on and off. So the way he says it, the Shalmei says, Kol kli asher lagia le'ika tachlisa v'shimushay chayavin labar issa chashiv kli shemalachta le'issa. Not because you need electricity. That's not my problem. To use this keli properly, I have to do malacha. That is a new definition of malachta le'issa. Now,
what's the difference from Aaron from hot water?
we're going to get to that soon. That's why it's a malachta le'issa. We'll get to that soon. What he's not saying malachta leheta. He's saying it's a malachta le'issa because you have to put it on and off. We'll get to the urn very soon. So this is why Lamaisa, Rav Moshe was makel, obviously, and he held what do you mean? But right now, in today's situation, there's no issa. So Lamaisa, I would like to use a lashon that I saw they use. Le'etzem shimushay b'chli mechuyev lavar issa. That is a malachtoy le'issa. In other words, remember the olden days they had these fans that you a manual like a big base like a sheet and you fanned it back and forth. That's malachtoy leheta. But a fan's use is malachtoy le'issa. Now, I'll give you another dugma, the sabes oizim. I think they still have it in front of the stores. They have this kiddie ride. right? And you put in a quarter, now you have to put in probably $5, but you put in money and it goes. Now, is that a malachta l'issa? I'm not doing an issa. I put in money before Shabbos, true. But l'maisa, we all understand that that's a malachta l'issa, because how does it work? You put in money and it goes. So the fact you put in before Shabbos doesn't take away its status as a malachta l'issa. So here we have two svaras why a electric fan, innocent electric fan, might be malachta l'issa. One svar which is hard to understand, it needs electricity. But the strongest svara is the way it's used typically is on and off. Now this, I want to tell you, we see a recurring theme in Hilchas Muktza. The word malachta l'issa is not as literal as it seems. I'll give you an example. A money pouch, a wallet today, Mishmur says is malachta l'issa. I don't do an issa with a money pouch. A phone book, a cookbook, the person called malachta l'issa. I don't cook with the book. The teretz is, if it's closely related to a ma'isa issa, it's enough to become malachta l'issa. It's malacha is associated with issa. So again, that's more understandable by a regular appliance. If you have to put it on and off. So that's malachta l'issa. Now, any fan that works steadily is broken. If it doesn't close, it's dysfunctional. So that's the chiluk. And in fact, I saw Rabbi Shlomo Zalman says a brilliant yisoid in the Masechta Shabbos Kuf Chav Gimel. The Gemara speaks about a special sakin that you cut raw meat, that the butchers cut it. They cut it to size, whatever, to make it a nice piece of steak. So it seems to the Gemara that would be considered malachta l'issa. Now, in fact, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman in Shmir Shabbos Perik Chaf or Nun Dalid, why is it malachta l'issa? Raw meat, the Gemara says, is not Muktza. So what's wrong with cutting meat? Teretz is, why is a butcher cutting meat? Not for his chalent, to sell. That's enough to make it malachta l'issa. It's associated with selling. In fact, the Shmir Shabbos says maybe even the bags you package the meat to sell is also malachta l'issa. Bag? What's wrong with the bag? But when something is connected to malacha, it's malachta l'issa. So this is why I want to tell you that some Moshe seem to hold it has to be malacha mamish. So the fact you put it on every day is fine. Erev Shabbos you put it on, once it's going. But these paiskim, and again the Shmir Shabbos mentions them, he says perhaps we look at it that since its usage involves issa. The Chutshani of Mr. Karelitz in Chelik Gimel's Amad Samachala, he says, I'll prove it to you. He says, really, we assume that a pot on Shabbos is Muktza. Why is it Muktza on Shabbos? I'm not cooking on Shabbos. Teretz is, since you cook with it during the week, it retains its Muktza status on Shabbos. So he says the same thing is that a fan that you have to do malacha Erev Shabbos to put it on, so that means it's malachta l'issa. So this we could say is a new metzias. You could say any way you like to say it, but it's not the conventional malachta l'issa. It's a innocent fan that's giving Oynik Shabbos, but the fact that you have to do malacha, typically, even though now you don't do malacha, is that enough to make it a malachta l'issa? So Rav Moshe was very mekel, other places were machmir, but let me be very clear. There's really not much of an afkamin halacha l'maisa. Because even if we assume that a fan is a malachta l'issa, you're allowed to move it, ltzarech gufay, to bring the cool air to you, turn it in direction, turn it off you, easy the gufay mekaymai. So there's not much of an afkamina. The only afkamina would be if you have a long cord and you put the fan outdoors and it's about to rain and you don't need the fan. So Michamal Letzel, let the Moshe be mutter, and many places can hold it's awesome. But I want to mention that Tila David in Shin Ches, Sif Cotton Zion, he said, let's say you have a Klish Malachta L'Ism, and it's outside, it's going to rain, it's going to ruin it. You don't need it now, but you need it later on Shabbos. That's not Michamal Letzel. That's a Tzarech Gufay for this Shabbos. So basically, it's very rare to have something you don't need the rest of Shabbos. But Lamaisa, moving a fan is muta memanashach. Either it's a malachta leheta, even mechamal letzeil, or it's a malachta leisam and it's letzeil gufa mekaymai. Basically, it's more the havana as we proceed to use this in other cases as well. A humidifier that creates moisture, people that have respiratory problems need this humidifier. So humidifier is very similar to a fan. Once it's on, it's going, no malach is done. But you need electricity to keep it going. More so, the derech is you don't keep it on straight for weeks on end. You put it on and close it off. So it's very much like a electric fan. If you need to move Mekomo l'chol days, it's mutter. You can move it closer to the child or off the child, whatever it is. But basically, it's no different than a regular electric fan that has this unique status that it's not doing malacha with it on Shabbos, but malacha is done to keep it going. Today they sell these portable air conditioners, if that's the right word. You plug it in and you cool off a room. The same idea. You don't do malacha on Shabbos with it. It's a very helpful covered Shabbos on any Shabbos. But since the derech is to put it on and off, Rabbi Moshe would say that there makes no chilik. It's malachto leheta, and this new understanding in the Paiskim, since this derech is the typical usages on and off, that makes it a malachto le'issa. Ma'aseh shehaya, a true story. Someone had a valuable item that fell behind the refrigerator. So you want to know, is it mutter to move a refrigerator on Shabbos? What is the status of my and your refrigerator? So if you have a very expensive refrigerator, you're afraid to move it, it might be chsar and kiss. Shmir Shabbos in Perek Chav Beis discusses this. Mincha Shleima also does in Chelik Aleph Siman Yud. I'm talking about a refrigerator that you're not makbid to move it. You could move it, you're not so makbid. It's not chsar and kiss b'kitzah. How would you look at a refrigerator? So the emphasis of refrigerator is a wonderful keli. It's taka big, but it's still a keli. And all it does is keep the food fresh. What's wrong with it? And taka the Sefer Hilchos Shabbos b'Shabbos Chelik Beis Amud Shin Tes. He says a makar refrigerator is makli shemalachto leheta. It's like this, like a Moshe's understanding by a fan. No is being done on Shabbos. The electricity is the electricity company's problem. The fact that you plug in an Erev Shabbos, so what? But here is much better, because here the other svara doesn't apply. Because the derech is not to plug it in and take it out, and you plug it in and it goes until next Erev Pesach when you move it. But a refrigerator has a maila over a fan. It's not malachto le'issa. You put it on and it goes. So it's very yitachem. Even those that hold a fan is malachto le'issa. That's because the derech of usage is to put it on and off, like a fan, a humidifier. But a electric refrigerator, once you put it on, it goes. L'chayr, there's much more what's had to be makel. It's malachto leheta. Now the emes is again to move it to get something behind the refrigerator. Even it's malachto le'is's mutter, it's tzarech mekayim. To open the refrigerator door, even if it's muktza, it's tzarech gufay. To close it is also tzarech gufay, because the fridge is left open, the food spoils. So it's not much of an afkamina. But to me it was beautiful that even those that held that a fan is a malachto le'issa, not a refrigerator. A refrigerator has that basic chilik that it's put on and it goes constantly. This will give us information to the next shaila. And let's talk about a simple battery watch. We'll talk about a hearing aid soon, but let's talk about a watch. A watch goes with the koyach of a battery. So l'chayra, muskul rishon, a watch is not different than electric clock. This is going with electricity, and this is going with the koyach of the battery. What's the chilik? But for us, it's a very big chilik, because first of all, it's not coming from an electric company that's generating more electricity. This has the koyach stored within, and nothing new is being generated. That's number one. Number two, lemaisa, the battery watch, unlike a fan, etc., is not malachto le'issa. You don't put it on and close it that day. You put the battery in, hopefully it burns for a year or two, and you go weiter. But a battery watch is more like a refrigerator that it goes. So it doesn't have a koyach of electricity. It doesn't have the problem of putting it on and off. And that has none of the chesronis, and that's why Rabbi Shlomo Zalman in a tshuva, Mincha Shloima Chelik Aleph, Siman Tes, he taka says that a watch with a battery is not a shalom muktzah at all. The same Rabbi Shlomo Zalman that said by a fan he's concerned, that's because that's the derech to put it on and off. But a battery watch is a kli shemalachto leheta. So if you leave it outside, or you're afraid your children will play with it, even though you're not using it, it's absolutely mutter to move it, even michama l'tzeil. The Shalma Yonason, who he was very machma by a fan, he taka says, but a battery watch is a kli shemalachto lehet. Rabbi Nissen Karel's in Chut Shani Gimel Samachalep, he says a different svar that even if you're machma by a fan, that's because the electricity comes from outside, an outside source. Here the koyach is in the watch itself, it's self-sufficient, and therefore it's not a malachta le'issa at all. Now, more of a shaila is a hearing aid. A hearing aid basically is similar to a watch that it has a battery that controls it. But for those that use it, some people don't keep it on straight. They close it, they open it when need be. So that could be a little worse. That could be like the fan. If a person's normal usage is he puts it on and off, that might be a problem. But again, in the worst scenario, the problem only is the malachta le'issa. So the tzorach gufay, mikkoimay, is mutter. To use it, take it in, put it in the air, take it out of the air. I'll tell you even more so. Let's say he left it outside in the rain, and it's about to rain, and he's not going to use the whole Shabbos. But maybe at the end of the Shabbos he will use it. Then we have the het of Tila David. If you're bringing it in now to use it sometime on Shabbos, that's considered enough of a tzorach gufa. So again, the yisoid is that these new appliances are unprecedented. It's a new metzias that you put it on and off, but there's no issa being done with it. Another halacha that happens, people ask me this child, the smoke alarm either starts to ring, or the battery is weak, and it starts to chirp and it grates on your nerves. Can you move the smoke alarm out of the room? It's getting your nerves, you can't sleep. So if it's attached to the wall, you have a problem, because that's already considered mechubal karka, and there's a question of binyan, or soisa binyan. But let's say you have that, you know about that already, you keep it on top of a furniture, but kids, it's not attached. So again, a battery-operated smoke alarm is probably like a watch. You don't do malacha with it, you put it on once and it goes. No, this is being done by you. This is better than an electric fan. It should be a kli shemalachta, believe it or not, leheta. And once it's malachta leheta, the chayr, there shouldn't be a problem moving it out of the room. Now the next group of questions, Mataka, you asked, is the following.
It's made to make noise.
What's the chilik? When it makes noise, it's ready, it's pekuach nefesh. That's what they say.
It doesn't look by itself.
Yeah, it's like Shvi's Caleb. Now the next question, I once witnessed this, it was an interesting lesson for me. Someone was in a shul, and the urn obviously had no water in it, so he was tilting it to get the water out. Like, Moshe hitting the stone, hopefully it's going to come out. Someone yelled, Muktza! And what he should have yelled is, you're going to break the urn. If you turn it when there's no water, it breaks. Okay, but Lamaisi, he's worried about more the Shabbos. Is it true that an urn is Muktza? After all, an urn has a heating element that cooks the water. So now we have a new shaila. Till now we spoke about fans and alarms, that there's no aish. Now we're talking about an urn, a crockpot, a plata, a heater, any appliance that has an aish and it has a coil, a heating coil, that cooks the water or brings heat. What's the halacha about such an appliance that has a heating element which is aish in halacha? So let me explain. An urn does not cook by magic. There's a coil that gets very hot, and that coil is able to cook the water. The mitzvah, the halacha is, this is Bemis Gemara, Rambam and Rabbi, the Mishnah brings in the beginning of Shin Yud Ches, that heating a metal until it gets hot is either havara or bishul or both. But when you have a tardika eyes, when you see a heating element in a urn, crockpot, a mikveh heater, all the same idea, that is havara mamish or bishul mamish, but it's mamish like an aish. So the question is, maybe an urn, although it is a regular appliance, but if it has an aish, it's a bus to the aish. So what, you ask? Who cares? So this is a very prominent case of Muktza. The Gemara Masechta Shabbos Daf Mem Zayin, and we know this on a weekly basis. You must put chals on the table before Shabbos, otherwise you can't move the table. What's wrong with moving the table on Shabbos? The teretz is that the tables are buses to the leichter. What's wrong with the leichter? Leichter buses to the candle. What's wrong with the candle? So fact the Gemara in Shabbos Daf Mem Zayin, what's wrong with the candle? So Gemara says the whole candle is there for the aish. And shalebas ain boy mamish, it's a muktzah machmas gufay, and therefore it can't become a kelim. So this is a very unique hilchas muktzah. The fire is nothing, not on the map, but it's enough of a something to make thousands of dollars into Muktza. Again, the leichter, the tray, the table, it's all Muktza because of this chemical called fire. But that's the side of Muktza, a bosses. So here the question is, maybe an electric urn, electric crockpot, etc., is Muktza because there's an Eish in it. And Taka the Orcha Shabbos and Aleph in Chelik Beis, Omid Peites, Meicha Mayim Chashmali, that has a guf chimam loyit, we consider it like a buses to the fire, and you can't move the urn as regular Muktza. More than a regular Muktza, this is a Muktza of Eish, and even Kalishim, even Ltzarech Guf Mekayim would not be Mutta. He's assuming it's no different than the Leichter and the fire on top of it. Now this is also the opinion of the Shvus Yitzchak in Perik Yudalad, quoting Rabbi Yashim, that since we look at electricity as Eish, so he spells it out, a kumkum chashmali, we'll soon see even a flashlight, any appliance that goes with the koyach of Eish, as opposed to a fan and all air conditioner and a refrigerator, if it goes with the koyach of an Eish, i.e. a heating coil, is considered Muktza machmas Eish, machmas gufay, and there's no head to even tzarech gufay mekayim. Now the Maisa, this to me was a big chiddush, because we know in the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Chav Gimel speaks about a maducha. Maducha is a grinder. It's a kli machl issa shenemo. It's mamish made to grind. So it's avad on Shabbos. It's Muktza. If you have it on the table, you can't move it unless it's tzarech gufay mekayim. But zok the Gemara. But let's say there's shum in it. The garlic that you ground before Shabbos is still in the maducha. You're allowed to move the maducha because it's a basis to the shum. In fact, you look in Shulchan Aruch carefully in Shin Ches Sif Hey, it seems that this maducha now is a kli shemlachta laheta. It's a storage container for the shum. So here the question is, true, avada, an urn has an Eish in it, fine, but it also has water in it. I'll say, but the Eish is worth more than the water. True. But why is the Eish there? Why do you have an urn? Not to have a comfortable accommodations for your heater. Why do you have an Eish? Why do you have the whole thing? For the water. It's all tzarech water. It's like the table and the leichter tray and the leichter is based to the fire. Why fire? Because the ik is the fire. That's the Ner Shabbos. So why don't we say that now it's taka a kli muktzah gomer avada? It is. But it's a basis for the water. And a taka found in the Sefer Nachlas Yisrael, it's a beautiful Sefer in Hilchos Muktza on Matov Shenayin Dalit, he says the same idea. A mecham chashmali is a basis for the water. But the Oz Nidbru and Chelik Gimel Simon and Dalit also says this, and to me it's l'char davar pashut. But what's interesting is that Piskei Tshuvas in Simon Reish Ayin Tesa Ara 6, he also says this svar that it's muta because it's a basis to the water, and poik chazim ayam the bar, people always tilt the urn to get the water out of the urn. Okay, so that's like a minig Yisrael, but it shouldn't be done because it might break the urn. But lamaisa, what this l'char is very logical. Avada, it's muktza, but it's a basis to the food. Now, b'yesa bi or b'yesa gishmak. When you have a crock pot, okay, so when the cholent is in it, it's hard for me to understand why it should be muktza. It's a basis to the cholent. Oh, but here's the catch. Many people that use a crock pot, they don't want to have the fire, the crock pot going the whole Shabbos. Also, they have to take the food out. So they set a timer, 12 o'clock, the unit shuts off, and then you could take the cholent, pour it out of the crock pot. Fine. So everything is going great. You put the crock pot down on the counter. What is the status of the crock pot right now? That's a real McCoy, kli shemlachta l'Iyar, without an Eish, because the Eish is off. Oh, that taka became Muktza, because it's mlachta l'Iyar, there's no food in it, there's no Eish in it, there's no food in it, so it's a regular pot. That I understand. But the crock pot at 11:30 that's bubbling with delicious cholent, why isn't it a basis to the cholent? So even though there's an Eish in it, the Eish, like the keli, is a basis to the food. So this would be a very practical heta. When you have either an urn or a crock pot, avad is an Eish in it, but it's all bottled to the food, like the shum is like the maducha is bottled to the shum. Now, le'idach gisa, and this contrast is very illuminating. If you have a portable heater, that's going on Shabbos, the old-fashioned ones that go with a coil, heated coil, that's eish without a basis for heta. That's not a problem. That's not a eish. But the case of the cholent, the chayr should not be a problem because it's a basis to the food. Now, Lamaisa, the next question is also unprecedented in Allah. Let's say someone set the timer to put the air conditioner on at 11 o'clock a.m. Now, in a lot of bungalows we have, in my bungalow we have it also, Grant, that you have the way you work the air conditioner, because it's pretty high up, you put the switch on, there's a switch, they put in a switch, so the switch is off, air conditioner is off, you switch on, it's on. So before Shabbos, I set the air conditioner in a separate unit, there's a timer, and the air conditioner switch is on. So 11 o'clock a.m., the air conditioner will go on. Okay, so far so good. The Lamaisa got very cold, and we don't want an air conditioner. So I had an idea. Now please listen, because this is a particular case. Before 11 o'clock, I just moved the switch from on, off. Now, if that also stops the timer from moving, I did a malacha. I stopped the timer. I'm talking about no malacha today. I'm talking only about one thing. The time is going independently and will go. But when I make the switch from on to off, the timer will put it on, but the system is off. So it won't go on. Is it much to me to move the switch from on to off? A simple act of moving a switch from on to off. No malacha takes place. That's number one. Number two, the same thing is negeya to a timer. The good old-fashioned timers, they have the green pin, I'm sure you remember them, and the red pin. Same story. 11 o'clock, it's going to turn on the AC. I don't want to turn on the AC. So to pull out the timer is an issa, because I'm stopping the timer. I just pull out the green pin, and it stays off the entire Shabbos. No malacha whatsoever. What's the status of a green pin? Is that Muktza? So we'll soon see another shaila about a plug, but this is something very unique. We could look at a plug at the switch. The switch is Malachto Issa, Avada, isn't it? You put on and off a light. But why is this considered a Sarya Kufay? I want to keep the AC off. So the normal uses are on and off, and I use it for on and off. The pin is made to control the AC, so I'm using it to take it out. And Zoktim in Chashleima, in Chelik Al Siman Yud Gimel, the Vayt Halacha you allowed to take out the green pin, maybe the pin is a Klisha Malachti Laheta. Because if something changes, the weather changes, you have the prerogative with Tzad Halacha. So not only it's Klisha Malachti Issa Tzar Gufay, it's Klisha Malachti Laheta. And this, to my knowledge, was very understandable. And Oy Bazoy, we could say another heta. Let's say a person has, again, a timer is in one room, one area, and the plug, you can somehow pull out the plug that will disconnect the air conditioner, but not disconnect the timer. Same thing. It's a klisha malachti le'isla tzara kufa. So in all these cases, l'chayra, it makes sense. It will be mutter as long as you don't do any other malacha. Again, be careful, don't do any other malacha. Oh, so no, so we don't go to Chazan anyhow, but we'll talk about it afterwards. Lamaisa Rav Moshe in Yardei Chelik Gimel Siman Mem Zayin Min Chazit Chelik Aleph Nun Ches and Chelik Beis Kuf Yud Chalkas Yakov all try that the pin is Muktza. Obviously, they held that even though Lamaisa you have a purpose of doing it, there's no heta. What's the svar in that? So it could be that the heta of tzarech gufay is a tzarech of heta. I'm doing a heta. Here, what I'm doing is I'm really disconnecting an AC. True, it's not doing malacha now, but the heta, a hammer, I crack a nut. That's fine. Here, I'm finding a way to disconnect an AC. Maybe that's worse, which I don't understand. But Lamaisa, at the end of the day, the Pais can say the following. The green button, although Rav Moshe and the Menchazir call it Muktza, but l'chayra, we should be able to say it's tzarech gufay. I don't know why they don't think of that. They don't think of that, obviously. But this should be a case of tzarech gufay. Maybe it's tzarech mekaymai. You want the place vacant, otherwise it's going to put on the AC. But I must say, Rav Moshe and the Menchazir did not say like I'm telling you. They felt it's Muktza, and you have to do it kalachayam. Could be, and this is probably Mistavra, that the case that I mentioned where the switch was on, and you want to put it to off, that has a different problem, because Bein HaShmashos, you couldn't touch that switch. Because bein hashmashos, the fan was, the AC was going. And that, Mikas Haskoi bein hashmashos, is Katzoy L'Kula Yom. And Ataka saw that in the Shmir Shabbos, in Yud Gimel, Lamed Gimel. He said, let's say you have a plug in the wall, and right now, the AC is off. And all you want to do with your foot, pull out the plug. So it won't go on later. He says, the problem is, bein hashmashos, the plug, the AC was going. We have a problem of migus katzai bein hashmashos. So you could take apart the plug, but you have to do it tilt the begufay. So he already chapped that problem, that if it was going bein hashmashos, it might be from a side door, so to speak, migus katzai lebein hashmashos katzai lekulayim. But I think in Svar we can understand that the switch, in the worst scenario, is a kli shemalachta le'isa, ltzorech gufa, if it wasn't katzai lebein hashmashos. Another point where this comes up is someone had the stove top, the fire was on, a wind came and blew out the fire. Now we have the fire, officially it's on, feeding gas, no fire. That's a dangerous situation. Can he close the knob of the stove top so at least it will stop the gas from going out, feeding further? So the truth is that's a dangerous situation. You have to do something quickly. But that is Muktza. Because Migas Katsoy Ben Hashmashas. Ben Hashmashas came, you couldn't play with the knob. So try to get a goy, but if no goy available, don't hesitate, move it kalachayad, because this is a hazardous situation. It is Muktza, but Mokim Pekuach Nefesh, make sure that that it's stopped right away, it shouldn't go further. Another question, which someone asked, is really a shiva from the answer, but I want to make one point, Linyanein. He left a CD on the table, a music CD, and Lamaisa, can he move it on Shabbos? Question number one was, he said, it's not considered Makayim. He has a big table. But it's not Shabbos-dik. He's saying Kiddush and singing mirrors, and there's a CD on the table. Is that considered Ltzorech Makayim? Because he doesn't want it there because it bothers him. So Moshe was asked this question. Moshe said, the biggest covered Shabbos is to keep Shabbos. So that's not Makayim. You don't need the place. Not Gufay. So what can you do? But let's say Punkt happens, but he needs that place. Is it Pashut? He can move the CD because it's Tzorech Makayim. So here we come to a beautiful Yisod, which is really three Gemaras, but in Yanenu, there's Machlekes Rashba in Kuf Nun Daled and the Balamor. The Balamor says something a Chiddush, that if you have a Kli Shemalachta Le'isa, but there is no foreseeable Tzorech Gufay, L'mashal, a CD, there's no way you could use a CD on Shabbos by Ifan or a USB, or a recorder, these little tachkalach. A hammer you could use, but what do you do with a CD? Put it on as yarmulke. There's no foreseeable use. So Zoktebein is the Balamor. If there's no the Tzorech Gufay, there's no Het Tzorech Mekayim, even though it's a Val Mekayim. Frag the Rashba, what's the Shaykhs? So to make a long story short, one of the Hezberim is Mamish Mosig Midvash our Sugya. Because as I explained earlier, what's the Yichus, what's the Heter of Kli Shemalachta Le'isa? It's a fully functional keli. No? So since it's a keli, it's like a Muktza Kal or Muktza Negamor. It's not even Muktza like to go in. But the Yisoid is because as a function makes it a Kli Shemalachta Le'isa. But a CD, a USB, a recorder that has no foreseeable Tzorech Gufay is like Eitzim Avanim on Shabbos. That's the Hezbollah of Rabbeinu Zrachia. Tying it to Rashba, what do you mean? But it is a keli. It's a very important keli. Punkt Shabbos, you don't have Tzorech Gufay, fine, but you have Mekayim. So this is a Machlekes Gedolei Rishonim, and this is any Paisik's dilemma, because Mitzad Echad, it's not in Shulchan Aruch, the Mishnah does not speak about it, but the Rekiva Eiga on the page says it's a Vadei no Heta, it has to have Tzorech Gufay. The Aruch HaShulchan says this in a few places, as is a Chazon Ish. Le'idach, the Mishnah seems to be Mekel, Rav Moshe seems to be said Beferish Lahakol. So that's why Lemaisa, our case that I began with, a vacuum cleaner in the room, even if it's Tzorech Mekayim, is not possible, you can move it. Because there's no Tzorech Gufay of a vacuum cleaner. So a person should rather move it tilted Begufay, but at least this Yisod, we have to understand where it's coming from. And last but not least, I'm going to share with you a beautiful Shaila. I remember this like yesterday, it was a few years ago. It was during the summer, I was in a camp then, and it was a blackout Friday going into Shabbos. Baruch Hashem didn't last much longer, but Friday going to Shabbos, it was already a blackout. So there's one Bach, he thought he needed attention, and Pekitza, he had a patent. The whole Erev Shabbos, he was walking around with a flashlight. He put it on before Shabbos. It didn't burn that much longer, but he's walking around with a flashlight, and he's showing that he found that an eitzah. So to me, it was like very striking. I never saw a person walking around with a flashlight on Shabbos. But let's think. Now we know the sugya. Is it mutlach hatchila to put a flashlight on before Shabbos and walk around with it on Shabbos? So the emes is, this had a battery, so it's not plugged into a wall. You have to have electricity, so that svara doesn't apply. The only problem is that this taka is more like a fan that the derech is to put it on and off. Fine, good. So what is it in the worst scenario? Kli shemalachta le'isa. Okay, so this is tzarech gufay. So even if you hold that it's a problem, what's the problem? In the worst scenario, it's a kli shemalachta le'isa tzarech gufay. So the problem is, wait a minute. Well, he said it's eish. This is light. Eish is like fire. Does someone walk around during a blackout with a Shabbos candle? It's meklis machleisa. There's no. Eish is machmas gufay. So Rabbi Yashiv Tak and Shvulski Tzchak in that same shtickle Perikei Dalet, he says a flashlight is like eish, and you can't move it even just like you can't move the leichtam. The Chutshani in Amid Samach also says this: a penis, a flashlight, is worse than Melachta L'Issa. It's machmas eish. However, in our times there are two starting to be makel, believe it or not. Number one, first of all, why is eish taka the worst muktzah? Why isn't taka like a regular Melachta L'Issa? There shall have us aim by mamish, right? A fire is a chemical; it's not a metzias. But a flashlight is a keli. So even though it has the halach of an eish, but why do you call it eish? But much more so is the fact is that today's flashlights are not eish, whether it's LED, etc. But lamaisa, this would be a case where it's not the halachadik eish. But Mincha Shloim is Simon Yudalid is matir to go around with a flashlight, either because he held it's yesh by mamish, or he's talking about a LED. But at the end of the day, this would be a case like a regular Melachta L'Issa, and that's why the person didn't do wrong, but didn't talk to you all.
Shame irgendwie like give big shikar to Smith for today's share. I'll give big shikar to Mishpacha Schindler for sponsoring today's share the Nishmas Aviyam Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Leib Fischel Alevis Chen Rocha Yotza Yutes Iyar to Nishmas Tzur B'Tzar Chaim. Now the great source is sponsoring a share called Irgendwie Return 718-851-8651 and email ist@yeshivanet.com. This is Hashem after Kaddish from Smith says Sikkim of today's share of Chananya ben Akashem Ratzach Bochel Zakes as Israel. Fig hebben dan ter midden snel aan de office man Silke Jagel Terviade. Jagel is Kaddish met Abba. Hey. Dan dan moet ik allemaal goed gaan voor een kamer machine. Hij is er met een heilig beetje zo bij Golos naar Karmel. Al die soorten, maar dan gaan we dan koud aan midden, dan meneer aan commandos, dan gaat hij er als alleen maar dan dan gaan we maar beginnen met de wagen met hij zijn er weer. Dan moet gaan we dus maar weer aan hebben mee. Kees maar we smaaien gaan dan alleen wat koud is op mee. Ik zal maar alleen maar ja, zal alleen wat koud is op mee. Okay, we say all the plugs are securely in for the recording, so say the Sikkim and Kelim Chashmal in B'Shabbos.
Just the basic Yisoid in Muktza, Melachta L'Issa is a keli, and therefore it has a heter of Tzarech Guf Mekayme, and Machmas Gufay, inherently useless, does not have the Ziterim. Basically, Melachta L'Issa is a Muktza Kal, that's where the or Muktza She'ene Gomer, the Rav calls it, and this explains why we have many heterim as long as there is a positive tzarech gufa. For example, clothing that you want to put in the washing machine that you can't keep around because it has a bad smell. You're allowed to open the door, put it in and close the door. You're allowed to open the dryer and take out clean clothing, that's tzarech gufa. To close the door is either mutter because it's tzarech mekayim, or as we said, it's oide biyadai. A dishwasher, some feel it's even malachti leheter because part of the use of its designed use is as a storage. Surely tzarech guf mekayim is mutter. An oven door is only mutter because it's a klish malachti leissa letzarech gufay. Closing it will either be mekayim, or if you need it closed for the other food, it will be letzarech gufay. A cell phone is malachti leissa. and you can use b'shas atchak for an alarm as long as you do it right. It shouldn't do any issa on Shabbos. We did see that an ha'ara, that once it's no longer functional, maybe it's muktzah the rest of Shabbos, because again it's basically functionless. The Bialacha said a multi-function item, even though primarily is muktzah, is not muktzah because it has a usage v'heta, like a nice Pyrex dish, or calculator watch, or a pocket knife. Electric fan, it's interesting, a simple shayla, there are 2 days, one sheet holds it's melachta laheta, period. The other sheet holds you need chashmal to keep it going, or it's made to put on and off. But even if it is melachta le'issa, we have the heta of tzorach gufa mekomo, because melachta le'issa is related to issa, like a cookbook, or we said a phone book. A humidifier can be moved tzorach gufa mekomo like a regular melachta le'issa. A refrigerator is not even melachta le'issa, but even in melachta le'issa, for intended use, is okay. A battery watch is melachta leheta. A hearing aid should be treated like melachta le'issa, but you're allowed to do it tzorach gufa mekomo. A smoke alarm that's ringing, you're allowed to move it if it's not a question of boina. An urn, crockpot, is a eish, but is the basis for their food, and therefore it's like a regular melachta. At that point, the melachta leheta because it's the basis of the food. A heater is a regular machmas eish, no other basis, and that's not a problem. The pull a knob, pin, or switch when will only keep something from going on. We did say a tzad to be makel. I think it's at least a melachta le'issa. L'tzorach gufa. Some must hold that that's considered the melechas issa ba'ofen heter. Maybe that's the svar. But basically, if it's katzoi ben hashmasha, is l'mashal the switch, then you can't move it on Shabbos. We did see that USB, CD, vacuum cleaners is machlekes hapoiskim if there's a heter of tzorach mekomo. And the flashlight, if there's no age, it's certainly a regular kli shemalachta, perhaps laheta, and you're allowed to move it for your need.